All right, you can go ahead.
All right, perfect. Good afternoon and welcome to the KUT and Austin Monitor City Council Forum for District 1. I'm Haya Vanjwani. I'm a reporter with KUT, and we have 3 candidates here with us, all running for the District 1 City Council seat. Thank you for all being here. Before we begin, a rundown of our format and some notes about conduct. First, we'll do 60 seconds for opening statements. After that, we'll have a series of questions. You'll have 60 seconds to respond to each of those. And then if you're mentioned by name in a response, you will have 30 seconds to respond. And then there will not be any closing statements. Please refrain from any offensive language or gestures, as well as running over your time. We also ask for no ad hominem attacks and to stay out of the chat. With that, let's begin with our candidate intros. Today we have Clinton Rary, Misael Ramos, Natasha Harper-Madison, and Melanie House-Dixon. The 4th candidate for the seat couldn't be here today. With that, Clinton, you have 60 seconds.
Hello, my name is Clinton Rary, running for Austin District 1 City Council seat. The reason why that I'm running is the same reason why so many people are upset. We have out of control spending, several programs that have backfired and done the exact opposite of what they were supposed to do. Like Reimagine Policing has made our streets more dangerous. Vision Zero, which was supposed to reduce traffic fatalities, has actually increased traffic fatalities. The Climate Equity Plan that focuses on being environmentalists and reducing our carbon emissions, but ignores the environmentalist crisis that's going on in our own green belts and our own waterways. The homeless industrial complex that's getting adopted from programs like California, Oregon, and Washington that enables homelessness and doesn't actually help the homeless. And so I just want to bring common sense back to City Hall, and that is going to be through accountability and transparency in how we spend our money, improving public safety.
Thank you, Clinton.
Our police. All right.
Thank you. Forgot to mention, I'll hold up a hand when you have 10 seconds left.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, Misael. You have 60 seconds.
My name is Misael Ramos. I'm a community advocate here in East Austin in District 1, also running for City Council. Currently, I am the president of the Blackland Community Development Corporation, so I do affordable housing, and I also do anti-displacement work as well, and gotten some programs passed. And the main reason I'm running is because I want to run to become the community voice on the dais. I think that we need some more representation in the ways of community advocacy. And so I feel that with my experiences, with my knowledge, my know-how, and also my skill sets, that I could definitely be a good representative on City Council. There's been a lot of change that's been happening throughout our district, and a lot of folks feel left behind or not included. And I want to bring us all forward together and show that you have another choice on the ballot. Misael Ramos.
Thank you. Natasha, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you very much. My name is Natasha Harper-Madison, and I am running to continue to represent the city of Austin and all 46 glorious square miles that constitute District 1. Austin, Texas is my home, born and raised here. So aside from my commitments to housing, economic opportunity, and mobility, I feel a deep commitment to running for Austin City Council again, to make certain that I continue to do what I've done so far, bring smart, pragmatic, practical, integrity-driven leadership to the city of Austin, because I realize and wholeheartedly believe that representation matters. Having a strong Black woman in a position of leadership in the city of Austin is exactly what I believe we need moving forward. My diversity of experience and thought on that council offer us in so many ways the opportunity to think through some of the gaps that otherwise present themselves. My name is Natasha Harper-Madison, bringing truth-telling to City Hall, pragmatic, considerate development for the future of Austin. Thank you.
All right, we're going to go with Natasha again. Our question is, what's your favorite spot in District 1 and why? You have 60 seconds.
My favorite spot in District 1 is a place called the Southgate Lewis House. It's on the corner of 12th and Comal. You've probably passed by it. It's a little old house. It looks historic because it is. It was built in the 1800s, originally when the Swedes occupied East Austin, that area town is called Sweet Hill. They had this house. It eventually was owned by a Black family, though. So the Southgate Lewis house is a treasure in that it holds so many beautiful East Austin treasures from the Black community. It has those banners outside. People have been passing by it for years and never been inside. That's one of my favorite places. I love old things and I love old people, and I love that testament to old East Austin.
Thank you, Natasha. Ms. Adel, you're next.
Yeah, my favorite place is probably Alamo Park in the Blackland neighborhood. Alamo Park is a pocket park that has an Alamo Center, small center with resources, but also has a really cool basketball court. It's actually sheltered, so folks can play when it's raining outside, or we've actually had community events where people have turned it into a roller rink and actually skated around. So definitely Alamo Pocket Park. Folks get together, barbecue, have their dogs play with each other, and just really have a lot of community. It was really developed by Catherine Poole, the founder of the Blackland Community Development Corporation. So it's awesome to see that legacy and that community brought forward and still there.
All right, thank you. Clinton?
Well, Moselle stole mine, but I like Alamo Park as well. But other than that, I spend most of my time in my backyard working on my garden. We have 33 raised garden beds where we grow majority of the food that we consume, and work on water collection and filtering our own drinking water through the water that we capture from our roof, and then just sharing the food and the water that we capture with our community. So growing food and feeding people.
All right, thank you all. Our next question, we'll start with you, Clinton. What do you think is the most important issue in your district?
That'd be public transportation and public safety. There's a lot of crime in District 1, and then there's lack of transportation for public transportation. For example, it's an hour and 17-minute walk from my house to the closest bus stop. And I'm in the kitty corner of Northeast Austin of District 1. And so if I'm having this limited access to public transportation, I see a lot of people that do walk, that I did give rides from time to time. Also not having paved sidewalks. So we have sidewalks that just end. And then if you continue for about a mile, they continue again. So just having actual access for pedestrian walkways as well, so people can get through the towns. If it's on a bike, if there's no bike lane, they have a sidewalk to actually ride on. So they're not in the middle of the street.
All right, thank you. Ms. Al?
Yeah, for me, it's affordability and displacement. So folks, I believe that they go hand in hand when we're talking about affordable housing, but also displacement of folks who live here. We're consistently seeing the numbers decrease for Black and Brown populations here in East Austin. And so a lot of that's due to, unaffordable housing, and also the skyrocketing rates for property taxes and et cetera. And so I'm really trying to push forth a way of actually having more diverse housing within D1, also using community land trusts to ensure that we have housing in perpetuity through the city, and also coming up with programs and ways to keep people who helped build East Austin in their homes and in their communities as well.
Thank you, Ms. Al. Natasha?
Thank you very much. I think the most important issue that District 1 constituents have consistently brought to my office in the last nearly 4 years has to do with infrastructure. And when I say that, I mean all things infrastructure, literal infrastructure, from our sidewalks and our roads and our pipes and plumbing, and the areas that have concentrated and localized flooding. So infrastructure also includes access to mobility, access to housing, and access to workforce development, all those things that have been overlooked and disinvested in District 1. It's entirely unfortunate that we are here, but where we are right now is a place where we're trying to retrofit an entire area of town, which seems virtually impossible, which in my mind's eye means we have to start at the foundation, which is the infrastructure.
All right, thank you all. Natasha, we'll start with you on this next one. The expansion of I-35 is a contentious topic among Austinites. Where do you stand on this issue and why?
No higher, no wider. The city of Austin, as much as we all love it, we have to recognize that to move forward as a community collectively, we have to atone for the past. We have to recognize how we got here, our highway, much like most highway projects in our country, being the dividing line between communities. I-35 continues to be a barrier, continues to be a visual representation of segregation in the city of Austin. I'd like very much to see us move towards a model that recognizes that it's important to have our city be connected and always possible. The continuity that we can create in this downtown corridor and that Northeast Austin corridor, that just north of the river corridor, by way of not expanding the highway, will bring our city closer together and will help us to address economic segregation in the city of Austin.
Thank you, Natasha. Ms. Isle?
Yeah, I'm against the expansion of 35. The data shows that you expand more lanes, you get more traffic and more cars. So essentially, I really want to work with our community and work with TxDOT and try to figure out, do a comprehensive analysis on what those impacts would look like and actually try to figure out what would be best for Austin. I do believe in a more connected city. But I also believe in a way that we can perhaps either work together to ensure that we don't have as much congested roadways and also not having as much climate impact as we may have in the future as well. So against it ultimately. Thank
you, Ms. Al. Clinton?
Yeah, I'm against it as well. I don't think anybody should be displaced for roads. So expanding it is not something I'd support. I wouldn't even support sinking it as well. Doing tunnels like that is going to cause more issues when there's accidents. We do have a lot of accidents. So if you're below ground, dealing with those issues is going to be a huge hurdle. So I'd support more of a boulevard and kind of working with the community and how can we redirect a lot of these truckers that use the I-35 corridor through town on their main route. With TxDOT. So if that's creating a program to where they can take the toll roads and not paying tolls, that would be an option as well.
All right, thank you all. Clinton, we'll start with you. The City Council and the Austin Police Department have a rocky relationship with one another. How would you seek to improve law enforcement morale while also meeting constituent needs on police oversight?
So having police oversight is important. I know the police oversight program or policy that the Austin Justice Coalition and other non-government agencies are pushing is more of a control of how the police is ran versus actual oversight, so I don't support this police oversight program that was presented. But I do believe there needs to be more transparency on how officers that are having files complaint on how things are being addressed, so the city's actually seeing them. And so having that committee having oversight of that, I would support, but not having control over how the policies or contract negotiations are done, I wouldn't support that.
All right, thank you. Ms. Isle?
Yeah, I believe that there should be more transparency and accountability and oversight over the police as well. I definitely support the policy that was just recently kind of kicked down the road. Essentially, I think that we need more accountability with our policing. But at the same time, I think we also need to remember that there are still good police out there and folks that are actually wearing the badge to do good for us. There's the folks behind the badge are human as well. And so we got to get back to a place where we're able to heal this relationship so that we can continue reimagining what policing could look like. Because essentially we might get to a point where what we see as policing now or police officers, that might be an entirely different role. But first we got to work together to get there. And we need more transparency and accountability as well.
Thank you, Ms. L. Natasha?
Sorry. So I think it's possible for us to have a fantastic, well-trained, well-paid police force and also have communities that feel safe by way of the services that are provided by our public safety professionals. I think it's imperative that we recognize that we are asking for too much. I think to better reallocate funds, which was the point of the reimagining of public safety in the first place, should go to supports that would help officers do their job, which is to keep the peace. They shouldn't have to act as social workers. They shouldn't have to act as counselors. They shouldn't have to act as mental health caseworkers. And all that said, if we can provide the systems that provide those services, those social safety nets, they can focus on the work that they're intended to do and offer themselves the opportunity to have a better quality of life by way of having a better professional experience.
All right. Thank you, Natasha. This next question is for you, beginning with you, and then we'll go down the line again. The average rent in Austin is about $1,700 a month, while the average price of a home is about $550,000. How would you address the increasing unaffordability of living in Austin?
So that's a complicated issue, right? And at the end of it, I think a lot of what's happening with the lack of affordability in the city of Austin has to do with what people make. Stagnant wages almost always are at the top of the list when it comes to lack of affordability. I think people need to be better trained. I think people need to be better paid. I also think folks need to be able to live closer to where they work. I also think folks need to be able to ditch their cars. So comprehensive housing, addressing our housing situation in a way that's comprehensive and broadly applied, and also extending that consideration to mobility options and transit options. You can't separate the two. Childcare is the other one I would mention. Not having access to childcare is the impediment to so many people's ability to have a happy, successful, and frankly, financially feasible life. So access to childcare, access to workforce, access to housing, and access to transit.
Thank you, Natasha. Ms. Ale?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. So the average rent in Austin is about $1,700 a month, while the average price of a home is about $550,000. How would you address the increasing unaffordability of living in Austin?
Yeah, I think the way we really increase affordability is essentially, one, building more affordable housing, for affordable housing mainly targeted at that missing middle. So I would even go as low as 60% median income and lower, essentially like helping out folks like our teachers, our firefighters, and even our police officers to be able to afford to live in Austin, specifically District 1. I also am going to continually talk about the Community Land Trust, because essentially Community Land Trust, working with nonprofit organizations and the city, we could essentially be able to build more affordable housing units, similar to what we see in like the Muellers and whatnot, but actually make it and continue making it affordable for folks. From there, we can also look at potential rentals and rental options as well around the city too.
Thank you, Ms. Ale. Clinton? You're on mute.
So when it comes to unaffordability, we got to look at the root cause, and there are several factors that cause this unaffordability. And one of them that the city had no control over, and that was like investor companies coming in and buying up properties in bulk way above market value and the bidding wars. But it looks at our cost to build. We're the second most expensive city behind Liberty Hill that only has a population of 5,000 people. So why are we so expensive to build compared to a small city like Liberty Hill? And the city council just spending money, but like monopoly money over like the last 8 years with year-over-year property tax increases. And a lot of renters don't understand when they vote for all this stuff to raise property taxes, that cost gets passed on to them. And so being more accountable on how we're spending our money, so we have more of a balanced budget, so we can lower property taxes, so we can drastically reduce our construction fees, so we have mom and pops that are able to compete against the big developers. And that way we have more abundant housing on the market, so we have a lower overall cost, and you're not having your evaluations go through the roof through bidding wars.
Thank you, Clinton.
Affordable housing for all.
Thank you. All right. Our next question, again, we'll start with you, Clinton. In 2021, Austin City Council set a goal to get housing for 3,000 unhoused people in 3 years. The most recent data shows that over 2,900 people still remain unhoused. How do you plan to work with the rest of City Council to get traction on combating homelessness?
So if we want to address homelessness, we got to actually address it in the reality. There's more than 3,000 people facing homelessness, closer to 10,000 people in Austin facing homelessness. And if we're going to continue duplicating California's programs and Washington's programs with a housing first agenda with beds and guaranteed rooms, we're just going to enable it and we're going to attract it. So it's 3,000 beds in 3 years now, and then 3 years comes now, and it's another 3,000, another 3,000, until we're spending $1 billion a year like San Francisco on homelessness. We need to move towards a treatment shelter approach so we can create a temporary shelter to drastically reduce our homeless population, have all the resources that we need there to help if they're chronically homeless to get housing assistance, drug or alcohol or mental health issues, getting them those services so we can help them become more self-sufficient versus a dependent class. That way we can have our homeless shelter like Arch actually have a manageable homeless population that they can help with it's only a few hundred, because we're never going to end homelessness.
Thank you, Clinton. All right, Ms. Ale.
Yeah, I believe that we should essentially look to our neighbors in Houston and potentially look at Community First Village on some of the ways that they actually approach homelessness. And essentially that starts with housing, and that's getting folks off the street. So what my proposal would be is to basically treat it like an ER room where folks come into an area, get housed, and then we can actually assess what their needs are and plug them into those resources. Essentially, you know, there's folks out there who want to get better, but can't, and you can't, it's really hard to get better while you're on the street. I would also propose a policy that would allow our unhoused folks to be able to jump in line to get more Section 8 vouchers, essentially allowing them to get permanent housing. So the folks who really want to get on their feet can then connect to workforce, can have a place of their residence and actually get a license so that they can get a job and get back on their feet.
Thank you, Ms. Ale. Natasha?
Yeah, I think it's critical that we recognize that we need low barrier, easy access, temporary housing. We also really need to make certain that that temporary housing emergency shelter comes along with complete care, complete case management that addresses all of the underlying issues. But I think one of the things that we have to start with is, as a council, as a body, we're going to have to make a commitment. You know, we talk about our budget being our moral document. We're going to have to make a commitment to behavioral health services. We need to focus more time, attention, and resources on behavioral health resources, on recovery and sobriety resources. And frankly, we also need to recognize that within that multi-pronged approach, there will have to be the community components that Alan Graham speaks so highly of. It's not just about housing when we talk about creating community for folks. We need to create those other parts of the system that are all about the human and not necessarily about the building.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you. Natasha, we'll start with you on this one. In light of Roe v. Wade being overturned this year, how do you believe Austin's social safety net will support women who are carrying unplanned pregnancies to term?
I think Austin's social safety net will do what it can do within the parameters of what is considered in compliance with the law. I think Austin's social safety net's best resource is information. And we have partners and allies nationwide who also have information and access to resources that people need to gain access to medical care, because abortion is medical care.
All right, thank you. Ms. Isle?
Yeah, I agree that we need to ensure that we have the partnerships outside of the city and outside of the state to essentially get folks connected. Unfortunately, you know, we are pretty much obligated to do what the state says, but we can ensure that people are educated and have those resources readily available to them. And also, you know, commend the folks who are trying to be allies, like the corporations or the companies that help fly folks out to receive medical care, abortion care as well. and essentially really just ensure that folks are having those resources given to them.
Thank you, Ms. Isle. Clinton?
So yeah, I believe the city should be focusing on providing resources and education on preventative measures so that they don't get unplanned pregnancies. And also for those that do end up with being pregnant, with the programs that are already in place for helping mothers, if it's getting baby food or clothes or helping with doctor's appointments, getting them all the information. That lets them know that they're not alone, that even though it is unplanned pregnancy, that they have support for their baby, because a lot of these programs are just kind of overlooked and not brought to attention, but also providing contraceptives for those that don't want to get pregnant and avoid having to under the strict, because there are, in my opinion, the strict abortion law in here does impact people that for rape and incest. That should have been addressed before they passed those bills.
Thank you, Clinton. We'll be beginning with you again for this next question. This is in regards to Austin Energy. Beginning next month, Austin Energy customers will see a $15 hike in their bill, and another hike is likely to come soon. How would you recommend that City Council work on softening the harm of increasing prices to constituents?
Stop taking the money from Austin Energy and reallocating into the city budget's general fund. Start there. That's $100 million plus that they reallocate to spend on other projects. And also the EV program that's hemorrhaging money, as well as the EV charger rebates. We shouldn't be subsidizing homeowners so people can get EV programs. Even though I've been working in the solar industry and I support renewable programs, we shouldn't be subsidizing on the tail of people that are struggling to choose to either buy groceries or heat their home. The co-op is supposed to support all of the community, not just a certain demographic. So those EV users should pay their fair share. But now we're going to see a destruction in the solar industry because that $15 raise is going to start eating at energy credits for the people that do have solar. And now they're going to have electric bills. So what's the point of going solar if you're still going to be paying for electricity?
Thank you, Clinton. Ms. Ale?
Yeah, can you repeat the question one more time?
Absolutely. The city of Austin Energy customers will see a $15 hike in their bill beginning next month, and another hike is likely to come soon. How would you recommend that City Council work on softening the harm of increasing prices to constituents?
Yeah, essentially looking at potentially subscription based programs, essentially being able to allow folks to that are getting rebates or reimbursements from their sustainable energy. So whether it's solar, water capture, whatever it might be, and being able to basically sell off that energy as well to try to lower prices. I'm definitely not for an increased prices on our utilities, especially considering the fact that we've had a lot of climate issues. And we're probably not out of that window as well. So that is what I stand for.
Thank you, Ms. Al. Ms. Hasha?
Thank you for the question. I appreciate it. As you may have noticed if you were watching the meeting, I voted no for the increase. That said, I also recognize the complexity of the situation that we're in. Austin Energy has to, much like the city, has to protect its credit rating. Negative credit rating for our energy provider, just like the city, has ramifications that multiply exponentially. And so that said, I recognize that we shouldn't have gotten here, and we need to make certain that we take every opportunity to prevent getting here again. But this is one of those times where leadership, where representation means that you have to give people difficult news and talk to them about the choice between two very difficult options. And the difficult option here is going to have to be an increase, and it's going to have to be maintaining the credit rating for our energy provider. But we can never get here again to where this kind of abrupt shift and change in cost happens again. This level of unpredictability is unacceptable.
Thank you, Natasha. Once again, we'll start with you. The city of Austin raised its minimum wage for city employees to $20 an hour earlier this year. Do you believe that this is a reasonable number considering the rising cost of living in the city?
I think, much like I stated in my last response, this is a multi-tiered multitude of points of consideration. And this is another one of those times where it's difficult to accept that the reality is we can't afford to go higher, but the reality is we should go higher. People need to be earning more. I made that statement when we talked about general affordability. The stagnation in wages is a large part of that problem. We took way too long to make the increase based on cost of living increases. And so the $20 seems like a bit of a relief for folks receiving it, though it doesn't provide that much in the way of practical application. It doesn't provide that much relief. So I think we did the best we could do for now, but am actively searching for opportunities for us to go higher faster.
Thank you, Natasha. Ms. Ale?
Yeah, I think the amount that we raised it to $20 is probably not enough, especially right now. Industries all over the country are basically trying to get talent and keep talent. And a lot of that comes with pay. I do believe that, council took a 40% raise, and we could have probably sprinkled some of that across different city departments as well to help raise it up to that $21, $22 an hour. But essentially, I do believe that folks could have gotten paid more, and that they should get paid more as well. We got to keep our talent, and the folks who are doing a good job, we need to ensure that they're taken care of.
Thank you, Ms. Ale. Clinton?
So yeah, people need to be making more because our government, not just our local, but our federal government is spending money ridiculously, and it's causing inflation to impact everybody. And with inflation, our raises and salaries have been stagnant. They have not been increasing to follow inflation. So we need to help people make more, but we also need to start spending less money and reduce the amount of spending that we're doing. And that means cutting programs that aren't working. That means looking at our doing a deep dive in our budget, starting at zero every year instead of, oh, we're at 250 million this year, so we're going to start 250 million and then add on to it. Reevaluating our budgets and actually looking at how we're spending our money and having true asset management, because the tax dollars that we receive, those are assets, and how we spend them impact everybody.
Thank you, Clinton. We'll go on to some listener questions now, and these were submitted through our listener portal where people could submit questions for this candidate forum. This is from District 1 member Anthony B. He says, small businesses give Austin its character and provide services to residents that are often more easily accessible than big box stores. What will you do to encourage the growth in the number of small businesses in Austin? We'll start with Clinton.
Actually, I'll start. So the way
we are going through alphabetical order back and forth, so we're going to go ahead and keep with Clinton if that's okay.
If he wants to start, I'll let him go.
Yeah, because I haven't been able to start once this whole time. I've been in the middle, so
just let him go.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so essentially what I would do is I totally agree. The character that we have here in Austin does come from like small businesses. Being from Dallas, moved here in 2005. One of the things that I really recognized was there was so many mom and pop shops. We're not seeing that as much, and unfortunately, with COVID, we've also seen a lot of folks have to close their doors. And so I think being able to give small businesses relief, but also giving preservation credits, essentially, to allow for folks who might not be in the position to own their unit where they're conducting business, but allowing them to be able to give a preservation exemption for that specific building so that they can actually not have a rise in rent over time would definitely help as well. And also expanding out our small business program too, and making that more accessible.
Thank you, Ms. Al. Clinton?
So yeah, I have to agree with Ms. Al Ramos on the preservation and then also having incentive programs to revitalize our small business industry, which was crippled during COVID. And it wasn't just because of COVID, it was because of our city council as a whole with their draconian lockdowns that said small businesses were non-essential, but big businesses were. And in my opinion, no individual or no business should be considered non-essential. everybody's business, especially small businesses, because they struggle and they don't have large profit margins like these big corporations. They rely on that income to pay their employees so they can survive and also so their families can survive. So in future, never labeling a company or business non-essential and demanding them shut their doors while H-E-B and Target are still able to have customers shop.
Thank you, Clinton. Natasha?
Thank you very much. Absolutely. I believe small businesses are the backbone to every major metropolitan city. In fact, my campaign hosted an event for small businesses the other night, and they presented the same challenges that I hear about all the time. My rent is $36 plus triple net. Commercial real estate is an impediment for a lot of folks. Not being able to afford commercial real estate is something that we're addressing by way of what we're calling a micro commercial space. You'll hear more about that moving forward. I think also during the pandemic, we had the opportunity to recognize some opportunities to create some innovation in the small business space. So like the Shop the Block program that we provided some opportunities with small businesses for my colleagues and I brought forward. It was highly successful. And I think beyond that, we really need to talk about having businesses be set up for success, a determination around viability on the front end. A lot of businesses that closed during the pandemic, frankly, were teetering on the verge already. They were operating in the red already. So not having small businesses get set up with businesses that aren't viable and having appropriate coaching throughout the course of it is necessary.
Thank you. All right, this is our final question. It's again a listener question. It comes from an anonymous submission. We'll start with Natasha, we'll go Misael, and then Clinton. What is your stance on Code Next and thoughts on the overhaul of Austin's current land code? That would include eliminating parking regulations citywide, reducing the minimum lot size in Austin, and eliminating compatibility standards. Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think you're speaking my language. I think most major metropolitan cities change their land development code between every 7 and 10 years. Ours is over 35 years old. I think we are still operating under Jim Crow era segregationist practices with our land development code. We very quickly, yesterday, needed to change our land development code to be broadly applied throughout the whole city. Minimum lot sizes need to go away. Parking minimums need to go away. Compatibility standards can be addressed in a way that's thoughtful and comprehensive, but also offers the opportunity to build more and more places in the city of Austin. We absolutely need a new land development code. It will be the start of us addressing our housing, mobility, and affordability issues in the city of Austin.
Thank you, Natasha. Misael?
We need a new land development code, but we need to ensure that it's not to the detriment of the communities that are already here that help build East Austin. And so my whole approach to this and also for Code Next would be essentially to work with our neighborhoods, work with our communities, and see how we can strategically build out fully mapped out neighborhood plans. Essentially, folks in their neighborhoods and who have been there for generations, they know what they need, they know what they want. They also know the needs that they have currently going on in their neighborhoods too. So we need to listen to those voices and make sure that we're surfacing that whenever we're considering a new land development code. But we do need a new code at the end of the day to be able to build more complete neighborhoods.
Thank you, Misael, and then Clinton.
I have to 100% agree with Misael Ramos on that. I'd add on to that, adding additional programs. So not eliminating the parking standard that we have right now altogether, but adding programs for, say, someone that wants to create a low income or affordability units, that when they reduce the amount of parking, say limit to 0 parking, that those units are for low income families only. So if they're making below 50% MFI. And having public transportation, so a bus stop, e-bikes at these locations that are incentives for people to reduce the amount of parking at these areas. But I'm also not in favor for reducing and narrowing the streets where a lot of our council members want to get rid of vehicles. And they want to get people on public transportation only. A lot of people do depend on having autonomy of what they do and where they drive. A small percentage of our population actually relies on public transportation, but we need to make sure that they actually have access to it.
Thank you, Clinton. All right, with that, thank you all so much for being here. Tomorrow, KUT and the Austin Monitor will hold our next candidate forum for District 3 at noon. Early voting begins a week from today, and Election Day is November 4th. Once again, I'm Haya Panjwani with KUT. Thank you for being here and have a great rest of your day.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.